All right, peace, peace, peace. Welcome to another episode of the Mixed Metals Podcast. This is episode 11. I appreciate you all joining me. I set out to do a series of a bit of a trilogy of episodes relating three albums to each other and what they mean to me and how I feel like they have like similar themes and messages. Those albums being 444 by Jay-Z, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers by Kendrick Lamar, and Michael by Killer Mike. If I'm not mistaken, all three albums have now been Grammy nominated. Um, I have been listening to the Michael album still some more, and I'm not ready to I'm not ready to wrap up that whole little series first off, and I'm not ready to um do my review on it just yet. Still some things I want to, I want to listen to it a couple more times before I'm fully confident in putting that episode out. So in place of that, we do two episodes a week at least, and the second episode is always a focused episode. And with hip hop being such a pivotal um genre of music and just movement and style and everything with hip hop meaning as much to me as it does. I want to just focus on what I feel are like moments in hip hop that I just like I can just look back on and just appreciate so much. Be it like just one line in a song in general, or the whole verse, or just a collab that I never thought would happen, or things of that nature. Crossovers and all kind of things. So um I want to start from the beginning. For me, uh, my dad and my uncle were always into hip hop. Always, always, always. My dad had me listening to stuff that I probably shouldn't have been listening to at that time, but I'm eternally grateful because it shaped my taste in music. It shaped kind of who I am as far as hip hop goes. It changed, the possibly the trajectory of my interest and all kind of things. I think that is hip hop to me is the mo the most powerful form of music because of just the many ways that it can be presented, the many ways that it can be interpreted, the many ways that it can it make you feel. I truly believe that that it is it is soul music to an extent. Um, and is I mean, there's no shot because it represents a struggle. It represents a triumph. Coming from lesser than and becoming bigger than. Uh, it 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 speaks for people who still to this day have been voiceless, people that don't necessarily have a platform or don't want the platform but still have a message to convey. um so uh with that being said, I remember early 90s, obviously. I was born in 93, so maybe like 90, and I have a very, very good memory, by the way. So maybe 97, 98. I remember my dad and I, or my uncles and if it was my uncles, we rode in the and it's like an old school white Chevy Malibu with matte white paint. I don't know how they pour that off. That was the family car basically because it went from my uncle, who was my dad's older brother, to my dad, to my other uncles, who are my dad's younger brothers. Um, and they had a great sound system in there. Um, and I remember, it would be the summertime. I remember the leather seats. I remember everything about it. And if I can just think of specific songs, I can think back to those moments. Um, Tupac was real heavy in those days. For my uncle, I won't say his name, but for one of my uncles, Tupac and Wu-Tang. Those were the two that anytime I think of those times, I think of that music. I think of how they reacted to seeing Wu-Tang videos and that kind of thing. And that's already, in and of itself, that's already kind of different for considering, us down here in the South. I know that my experience and my musical taste definitely shocks people, especially people from up north, like New York, Connecticut, the Delawares, and even Virginia, north of us anyway. California, people from California, people from the Midwest, what be it St. Louis or Chicago, or those people expect for, and I'm not speaking for about all of them. I'm just speaking for the people that I've come across. They expect for us Southerners to only listen to Southern music. So, and of course I do, and I love Southern music. Ti is one of my top five all time. I love Outkast, UGK, 8 Ball and MJG. Uh, I mean, Ludacris. I had my run with Ludacris at one point. Jeezy, of course. Um, I had a little run with Gucci when I was in high school. I mean, I can go on and on as far as Southern music goes. The Rick Rosses and the Trick Daddies, and that kind of thing. I've always loved Southern music, and I'm considering Virginia to be the South. I love the Clips, um, Pharrell, Timbaland, Missy. If we go North Carolina, we got Cole. I know that kind of style doesn't necessarily scream Southern, but I mean he's a Southern artist, for all intents and purposes. So I know that people don't necessarily expect for you to listen to that kind of music, and like northern music, like the Nas's and the Hoves and the Tupacs and the Biggies and the Too Shorts, and even though I don't necessarily listen to Too Short, but I respect it. I respect what he means to those people out there in the Bay Area. Um, but people don't expect for us to listen to that kind of music or appreciate that kind of music. Um so my uncle, and I was able to tell him this a couple of weeks ago, and that meant a lot to me, that he shaped my taste in music more than anybody else that I can think of. um because he had the volume ones, and I would play it on my little CD player. I had a Sony CD player at one point. I had a Philips CD player at one point. um I had an Emerson little radio that I had in my room, where I would get the burnt CDs. Back in the day when we had like mix, when you used to make mix CDs and that kind of stuff. um I just remember, like I remember us listening to Outkast, and my mind just being blown. I remember us listening to Goody Mob, and my mind just being blown. And back then, my dad had a Honda Civic, like a '95 Honda Civic, white as well. It was a stick shift. I remember he used to get like the little radio where you take the face off when you're going somewhere, and all of that stuff. So, uh, I remember us listening to, was it The Art of Storytelling by Outkast, and I remember that beat. It's like that, nah, it's like that, nah. So back in the day, when in that time anyway, the thing when you used to like music, you used to do your hand like this, and so it'd just be me and my dad doing this in the car. um and those are just special memories that I never forget. uh of course, I didn't know what any of these songs meant or anything like that, but now, like looking back to Aquemini, and this is my first, or I guess my second moment, that I'm gonna speak about. Twice upon a time there was a boy who died, lived happily ever after, but that's another chapter. Like, then of course that didn't mean much to me, but at like now, like going, like thinking back to that time, because I was alive, and I did hear music at that time, but I wasn't necessarily listening to the music at that time. um and just thinking back to that line, that opening line, that's how Three Stacks opened his verse. And I mean, like thinking back to that now is like, wow, like I can't believe that somebody would say something like that, to especially to open the verse. You other people speak about moments in hip hop like when I'm about to forget his name. Was it Fife? I think Fife, when he said microphone check 1 2, what is this? That I mean that's an ill line, in and of itself. That I like, because the MC is the master of ceremonies, so for him to be the one microphone check 1 2, and that's how they used to get the crowd's attention, or make sure that they still had control, kind of the crowd. So for him to say microphone check 1 2, what is this? It is like, and I could connect that to when Nas on New York State of Mind said he don't even know how to start this shit. You know what I mean? Straight out the fucking dungeons of rap, where fake niggas don't make it back, and I don't even know how to start this shit. You know what I mean? Like that's just so hard to me. Just thinking about like there are certain moments in music, in general music, where I wish I could have been in the studio. Just to give an example, as by Stevie Wonder. I really wish I could have been in the studio for that song. I mean, I just feel like that was a moment in history, a moment in time that, you know, that the people that are still alive that were in that moment, I imagine that they still talk about it to this day, tell it to their grandkids and their great grandkids. I imagine that that's just something that just is among the most special moments of anybody's life. Um, and in hip hop, I mean, it's kind of too many to name, so I don't even say that I wish I could have been in the studio for this song, hip hop wise. But it's just moments that I wish I could have been like maybe a fly on the wall, just seeing like when they was writing it, uh, I would also love to have seen like the lines that they scratched through, or the lines that they erased completely, or lines that they thought about, but then they tweaked it in their mind and then they wrote that down. I would just love to see that whole process for some of these songs and some of these moments. Um, so we move on to we pass from Outcast. Jay-Z. Jay-Z for me. Jay-Z and Kanye, actually. So I'm a bright kid. I was a bright kid rather. I read to my first grade class. I just I learned and kind of developed at an early age, as far as like as cognitive skills and reading, and understanding uh patterns and those kind of things. Now I am red green colorblind, but I didn't know that I was colorblind, because I was under the assumption that colorblindness meant that you only see in black and white. So I had a pretty unique view of the world, in general. Um, but to add on to that, I was also colorblind. So certain colors that I thought were whatever they were to me weren't the actual colors. Come to find out later, and that kind of thing. So I remember, seeing the album art. I know that Outkast always had the naked women on the actual disc, like on the CD. Um, I remember. With that being said, I remember getting, for some reason, I don't know why this was, but I remember Dynasty. Dynasty came out in 2000. Uh, and my mama's boyfriend at the time bought me that CD, and I would say that that's the first CD that I ever like owned, like a retail CD. That's the first CD that I ever owned. And that's random. Um, at that time, I wasn't necessarily a huge fan of Jay-Z, but uh, just having something, just and also having my little Emerson tape and CD player. Uh, and just playing it. I didn't understand that intro was one of the greatest to ever exist as far as hip hop goes. Or I know that the song that I liked on that album was "Soon You'll Understand," and it made me feel weird. Like that song kind of scared me a little bit, but at the same time, I liked the little eerie like sample that they used. um, and that would shape how I felt, how I felt later. Like I like a lot of the eerie like sounds that Travis Scott uses now, or um, I like how kind of drawn out like a James Blake song could sound with any hip hop artist, or those kind of things. So that kind of it's just moments, man, moments. That's gonna be the name of this episode, obviously, but that's that's just also like it's a stream of consciousness for me, because I don't have a script to just to remember these things. I just think back to the music, and I can place myself at a time and a place, and at a specific moment in my life. And that's just I don't think that, well, for me, I know that no other genre of music affects me that way. um so as I was saying, the Dynasty came out, and I remember reading like album credits, not necessarily knowing what they meant. Again, I was what, 7 8 years old. um so not necessarily knowing what they meant, but just making sure that that I could read certain things. Obviously some of the words were too big for me at that time. I didn't necessarily understand, but I do remember seeing K West as a producer for a couple songs. I can't even remember what they were, but I just remember seeing that. I remember seeing Pharrell as a producer, and those kind of things, or Neptunes. I can't remember which one. It was one or the other. Um, but just seeing that, I didn't know what that meant, obviously, but come to find out, Jay-Z and Kanye West would turn out to be my favorite, possibly, well, no, not my favorite duo in rap, because I mean, like I said, we got Outkast, we got Mobb Deep, we got Clips, um, UGK, 8 Ball and MJG. Uh, so not my favorite duo, but my like Kanye is my favorite artist of all time. I know that he be wilding, but as far as artistry, I don't think that his artistry can be denied. And Jay-Z is my favorite rapper of all time. And 6-year-old me would have never seen that coming. 7-year-old me would have never seen that coming. Maybe 10-year-old me would have never seen that coming. 11-year-old me would have seen it coming, because that's when College Dropout came out, and College Dropout still to this day means a lot to me. And this goes, we were skipping ahead a little bit, but I remember at a specific time and place. I remember us picking up my younger uncle from baseball practice, and I remember my uncle, the same uncle that shaped my taste, that I gave the credit for shaping my taste in music. He was listening to College Dropout. I remember the song he was listening to. He was listening to Family Business. And I remember hearing that sample. All that glitters is not gold. All gold is not reality. And I remember him, even like when we got out of the car, I remember him continuously repeating that. All that glitters is not gold. All that glitters is not gold. And me not even knowing that this was the same guy that made Through the Wire. Because at that time I loved Through the Wire. That was just so like refreshing. I was in fifth grade at this time. Um, I remember hearing that sample, and hearing this guy like that can barely speak, and I learned that song so quick. Uh, and I mean it kind of went from there. Kanye continued to elevate, continued to innovate. Um, and I think that he changed the game forever. I think that well, I can't think of any artist that changed themselves to match an album rollout each time like Kanye did. Or if they did it, I don't think they did it until after Kanye. Um, Remember the College Dropout was the backpack. The College Dropout was the backpack. Um, Late Registration was kind of the same vein. Graduation, he was moving on from that. I consider that 3 album run to be a trilogy of sorts. And from there we went to 808s and Heartbreak, when he was wearing the the slim fitted suits that they kind of fit like tuxedos a little bit. He had the mohawk at that time, the glasses, the broken heart. That was at the time that Miss Donda passed. Uh, and we went from there to My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, which is my favorite album of all time. From there, the in between was Watch the Throne, a classic. Another one of my favorite albums of all time. Uh, I thought it was a classic then. I still, I was able to recognize then that that this album is something special. It has staying power, and the song specifically that let me know that was "Murder to Excellence" because it went from black murder to black excellence, and I don't like. I think that concept kind of went over people's heads. Um, but I mean, I can go on about Kanye forever. We don't even have to, or Ye, as he would rather be called. I go on about that forever. But who would have thought that that these two guys that are collaborating on these songs and as far as production and artistry and lead vocalists, I guess, who would have thought that these guys would have changed hip hop and that would have kind of held up the umbrella to everything else I would listen to, under them. When you birth the Travis Scotts or the TIs or Pharrell was before them, but just his abstract style of production and just anybody that's using samples heavily today. Um, Samples have always been a part of hip hop. Don't get me wrong, but I think that Kanye brought a new feeling to it, and he brought something. It because I used to think at because that's funny too. Because at that time, I used to think, man, why is he using all of these old songs to make new songs? That didn't make a lot of sense to me. But then, um, I everything Ye related at that time, especially, I wanted to know about. So when I would see him on BT or anything, I would just stop and listen. And I remember him speaking about the production, and I didn't know even at that time that meant that he was making the beats. And me learning that blew my mind as well. And then knowing that what he was doing was called sampling, um, and so that taught me something, and that gave me a different appreciation for that art form. Um, so yeah, I just the moment here is Dynasty being my first ever owned retail product as far as music goes, and or actually as far as hip hop goes, because I used to have Thriller on tape. As I mean, that's a remarkable piece of art in and of itself. Thriller would serve as a greatest hits for any other artist in the world. But Michael Jackson just gave you these 9 songs, like here you go. Um, but uh, Dynasty was the first CD that I've owned, and also the first hip hop CD that I've ever owned. And moving on from there, not too far removed from that, we'll get to Get Rich or Die Trying. And I remember my girlfriend in 3rd grade burnt that CD for me. She made that CD, and at that time, I didn't know what burning CDs meant. Um, I'm like, why would she burn my like? What does she mean by that? Is it gonna be hot or that kind of thing? My naivete, as they say. But I remember getting Get Rich or Die Trying and listening to it again in my Emerson CD/tape player. And I mean, from the very first song, like uh, you hear the coin like settling on the table, and then you hear G Unit, but we in it, but we'll get the drummer going, we ain't scared. And I didn't realize it was gonna be a lot of like all this cussing on the album, but like I said, my daddy, when I would ride with my daddy, even earlier than this, I would be listening to the stuff that I probably had no business listening to. So it wasn't really nothing for him, and he didn't necessarily like. I appreciate him for allowing me to just explore the music, and he knew that I wasn't gonna be saying the stuff that they were saying in the music, so he wasn't necessarily concerned. I was a good kid. Um, but just having I had so many favorites on that album. I At the time and still to this day, 21 Questions didn't really sit right with me. I never really liked that song, and that would shape something else that I get to later. Um, I didn't necessarily care for 21 Questions, but PIMP, of course. I was a huge fan of Patiently Waiting, for whatever reason. And hearing how Eminem came in on the song, I didn't recognize him at first, until he like started rapping in his normal voice, I guess you could say. Um, and I mean, just his flow, which I didn't recognize what that was until later on in life. His flow in that song, in the beginning of his verse, especially, was remarkable to me. I used to try to, remember it. Uh, ooh, my dog is trying to say something down here. Um, I remember trying to learn his. They think they're crazy, but they ain't crazy. Should basically face it like that. Yeah, blah blah blah. I remember just trying to learn that little part at the beginning of his verse. Um, him saying, "Hey, you're my favorite white boy, right? I owe you for this one." Uh, I mean, that CD meant so much to me. And it kind of appealed to like three different generations at that time because I loved that CD. My dad, even my dad had borrowed that CD from me. Um, he loved it, and my granddad, my dad's dad, loved that. Well, I don't know if he loved necessarily the whole CD. My granddad, I know that he loved In the Club. Anytime that song would play on the radio, I want to say he had a CD with just that song on it. Um, he loved that song. I imagine that to this day, like if that song played, like I would still see him bobbing his head. I just I don't know. It's just something about that song. But moments, man, moments. In the Club was a moment in hip hop, and a moment in my family. Like just it was all we ever heard on the radio. Um, and even if it wasn't playing on the radio, it was playing on my granddad's radio. It was just moments, man. So that was pivotal. Get Rich or Die Trying meant a lot to me, and with 50 Cent being, his story. You heard his story before you heard his music, and that was unique for me because this was like kind of right before like the internet was what it became. Um, the early days of Google. Um, it was just a lot of like the information age was in its infancy, and for everybody to know that he had gotten shot 9 times, before the CD had even came out. The marketing of that album, the marketing of the artist, that was something fresh and new at that time. And 50 Cent is a marketing genius still to this day. Nobody is as uh unforgiving or like unapologetically them as far as 50 Cent, or as 50 Cent, when it comes to marketing and those kind of things. He will punch at anybody, he will swing at anybody and don't care who he hit. Um, so that still stands strong to this day. But just that brought a fresh view for me as far as hip hop and all of that thing and all of those things. And also at that time, that was when I first got on to 106 in Park. 106 Park is another moment that I can speak about. I remember so many things. I remember, the different hosts. AJ and Freeze will always be my favorite duo from that show. Uh, but you know that we had classic moments year in and year out. I remember Bow Wow being Mr. 106. I remember I used to spend parts of my summer in Selma, Alabama with my stepmama's family, my stepmama at the time, her family. Um, and they had all kind of CDs. They had like a lot of Usher CDs and Bow Wow for some reason. And I remember I didn't know uh I didn't necessarily get the concept of singles at that time or understand that like this song that's playing on the radio is gonna be like one of the featured songs on this CD. I didn't, get that. I didn't grasp that well at that time, but that kind of clicked for me when the song "Thank You" by Bow Wow ended up being on a CD that my cousin at the time had. Um, and I had that song on repeat for whatever reason. I can't remember one. I mean, I guess I remember two words from the song "Thank You," but other than that, I can't remember anything from Bow Wow's verses or anything like that. I remember I was a Bow Wow fan. My mom used to say I looked like Bow Wow for some reason. Uh, but there was that, and then I guess that was around the time that Like Mike was out. Um, and we went to the theaters in Selma to see that movie. Uh, so yeah, that was a moment seeing somebody a little bit older than me on the big screen. That was wild, you know. And I'm sure that this had happened before. I'm sure that people saw when people saw Tupac and Juice or Poetic Justice and all of those movies and all of that, they had kind of a similar feeling at least. Um, but yeah, that was another moment seeing Bow Wow on in the movie. That was big. Um, so we moved from Get Rich or Die Trying to College Dropout. I already went over that. Um, from there we went to Late Registration. Late Registration, I didn't another moment. Something that didn't click for me until this time, the fact that an artist could have an album this year and then put out another one the next year. And mind you, this was after like right after a time where or kind of during the time where Jay-Z was putting out an album year after year after year after year. I didn't know that then. I had to go back and catch up. Um, this was right after a time where DMX put out two albums in the same year. You know what I mean? That just went over my head, I guess. But because I wasn't necessarily keyed in on them at that time, I kind of don't expect for it to have registered, but me seeing like Kanye had just put out College Dropout, and then the next year he put out Late Registration. I'm like, wow, like how can this even happen? Like he just put this album out. You know what I mean? Thinking about like um and a lot of weird stuff goes through my mind like still to this day. So at that time I wasn't necessarily thinking like a kid. I was thinking like, so does that make the other album like old now? Like do we just not listen to that now or what? Like how do we proceed? um I remember loving the hell out of Late Registration, uh and the Yeezys. This wasn't the time that Yeezys were out. I don't think they were out yet, but Kanye was taking off with the fashion sense as well. Um, I wasn't, at the age where I could go buy me no backpack and no polos and all that shit. So that wasn't happening. But he was very just influential. Um, it was a changing of the guard. And so from there we go to uh graduation. Graduation was my freshman year in high school. And this moment was when I was so confident in what was gonna happen with Kanye. He was my favorite artist and couldn't nobody tell me nothing about him. So this was a time where 50 Cent and Kanye, another marketing masterpiece, they were kind of going against each other. They were releasing their albums on the same day. and I think it was September 11th of that year of 2007, if I'm not mistaken. I remember them going to uh 106 in Park and having their little face off um as far as album promotion. Uh and this was not only a moment for me, because I bet one of my homies in my class that Kanye would have more sales than 50 Cent, and he did. And me not even knowing necessarily what that meant, I was just kind of going off of what I was hearing on TV, like who have the most sales and all of this and all of that. So, um, while the sales didn't necessarily mean anything to me, especially at that time, I was just so confident in Ye that I was willing to put him over everybody as far as music, as far as hip hop goes. And I was a fan of 50 Cent. Like I said, Get Rich or Die Trying was a moment for me. But this was a moment because this was when we kind of shifted from the gangster rap and all of that to the backpack rap. Um, and that shit. I mean, I don't know a lot of the music that we have today. I don't know that it would exist, or if it did exist, I don't know that it would be on the scale that it exists in. Um, I think that moment meant more in general for music in general than just hip hop. But as a moment in hip hop, I think that that's gonna be, if there are history books to be written about hip hop, that's definitely one of those moments where we kind of had a shift in the narrative and the audience's preference. Um, so that was cool. Uh, I want to say that was also around the time of Paper Trail by Tip. My stepmama bought me that album. I remember going through that. I love that album. For Swagger Like Us, I didn't like it hearing it on the radio, and this was pretty cool too. I didn't like hearing it on the radio, but hearing it in the album, like hearing it on the album, like it flowed within the album. It flowed well within the album, is what I'm trying to say, and that meant that was pretty cool. I remember the song that he had with Luda uh on there, and I remember that being a moment because they had some tension, and there was some lines shot back and forth, so that was pretty cool to hear and see. um I'm just trying to think. This was okay. Now we talking like the internet and downloading music and the not that piff, but the LimeWire days, and eventually that piff and live mixtapes. Um, and this is when Wayne started to take over. Now, Wayne was a moment for everybody that you could. I mean, there wasn't a remix on the radio that didn't have Wayne on it. Um, this was I mean, to just think back to that moment in time, even though as far as the Carters go, I think that it kind of went. The order for me, as far because I don't even necessarily rank the rest, like Carter 4 or 5. I don't necessarily rank those. Um, but Carter, for me, it goes Carter 2, Carter 1, Carter 3. As far as how they sound to me. Um, Obviously, as far as impact, it goes Carter 3, Carter 3, Carter 3, and then maybe Carter 2 or Carter 1. Um, so there's that, but I think that Carter 2 is my favorite Carter. Um, and but at that time, Carter 3 was all that people ever talked about. He sold 1 million in the first week. It was, I mean, you know, you couldn't have a music conversation without talking about that album, and that was just so like Wayne. Of course, you used to hearing Wayne, the block is hot, and 500 degrees and all of that stuff. But when the Carter Three arrived, it was powerful. It he was able to call himself the best rapper alive, and people that may not have even believed it were saying it anyway. Just because he was so like it was so convincing that like wow, like this dude is really like he is on some shit. Especially we said best rapper alive since the best rapper retired. That was when uh Hove had went on his hiatus. I'm not calling that shit a retirement, but um that was when he was kind of behind the scenes. He was more behind the scenes than anything. Um and even when he came back, Wayne was still, I think that Wayne still to this day would call himself the best rapper alive. Um and I think that that's dope. If you don't believe in yourself, ain't nobody else gonna believe in you. Um, but I mean, the Carter Three was a powerful, powerful, powerful moment. It, I, I remember my cousin calling me about the album. Like every line that she would hear that would like blow her mind, she would call me like right after that. So it'll be like 5 or 6 phone calls a day. Just us. Uh, and truth be told, at the intro, Wayne wouldn't even talk. Like, keep in mind, Wayne said at the very beginning of the album, they can't stop me, even if they stopped me. I don't even know what that means. I still don't know what that means. That still goes over my head. I still like I don't get it, but it is what it is. You know what I mean? That was a moment in history. So I mean, I could talk about the whole Wayne era, but from remix Weezy to mixtape Weezy to album Weezy, I mean, he had a run unlike any other run that we've ever seen, even considering Hove, because it was different formats. It was where you could download The Drought Is over here. You could download the Carter 3 leak over here. His whole album leaked, and so he went and made a new one, and it did probably better than what the other one would have done. Um, and we still listen to both. You know what I mean? It was just him being on the remixes, him changing like him making whoever song it was, him making that song his. Like at that time, and nobody Wayne had the game on lock. He had it on lock. Dedication 2 is still one of my favorite mixtapes of all time. It's second behind Rich Forever. Um, so yeah, I mean that was a moment unlike any other and I don't think we'll ever. That's like one of them LeBron type stats, like that's um seeing Wayne's run was seeing LeBron break the all time points record because it's just something that if it is touched, I don't think that it'll be in my lifetime. And I plan on living a very long time, forever to be exact. Um, so yeah, I don't think that we'll see anything like that again. Um, so that was special. That was special. Uh, I remember having an MP3 player where, well, my thing used to be I had so many MP3 players. I went through so many. I had a stolen iPod that I didn't know how to put no music on. So whatever music was on there, and the screen was messed up. So whatever music was on there was just the music that I heard. Until I tried to get in there, try to figure out how to fix it, and I broke it. I went from that to like a little like Philips or RCA MP3 player that my cousin sold me. Um, and on that MP3 player, all I had on there was Wayne. It was nothing but Wayne. And I want to say that was the story for maybe my next two MP3 players until I finally got an iPod for Christmas in 8th grade. Um, and I was able to put all kind of different music. I was getting all kind of viruses on my Mima computer. She couldn't stand that, and I apologize for that. Like still to this day, that was so dumb. Um, but I remember downloading whatever I could off of LimeWire. This was the Soldier Boy era as well. Um, this was something in this was also a shift where self-made uh kids and that kind of thing were able to put whatever they wanted to out. This was YouTube. This was when YouTube first started being what it started to be, MySpace and all of that. So you had to have a song on MySpace. I remember my MySpace song was not hip hop actually. It was I was real heavy into Gnarls Barkley at that time. Still am. I miss them so much. Uh so I had a lot of like it would kind of just be a rotation of Gnarls Barkley music. Um, but that kind of determined how cool you were or how different you were. Your song that you chose for MySpace, your layout that you chose for MySpace, and that kind of thing. That was just so the Wayne and Soulja Boy era reminds me of that moment for me was MySpace. Um, and then uh I would say that that kind of represented my whole high school journey. Of course, it was Kanye over everybody. But then Wayne, man, I just I okay, my relationship with Wayne, I couldn't stand Wayne. I did not like the Block is Hot or the Lights Out and all of that. I did not like that version of Wayne. But then the Carter came out, and when he had the dedications and all of those, I loved Wayne. He was my favorite rapper ever at that time. And Carter 3 was probably my peak as far as album Wayne. Um, Mixtape, probably I want to say Drought 3, but I did like Dedication 3. So probably Dedication 3 was probably peak me as far as mixtape Wayne. And I kind of, kind of not necessarily fell off. I still whatever Wayne put out, I still download and listen to it. But it's just, I mean, I don't necessarily feel the same about Wayne that I used to, and that's okay. You know what I mean? My taste has changed, and uh, the type of rapping that Wayne was doing then serviced me then, but doesn't necessarily service me now. I just it's just different. And there's nothing wrong with different. Um, but this was like later high school and that kind of stuff. When I really, 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 really got heavy into Jay-Z. And that's around the time that he was putting out the Blueprint 3, and I loved that album. I loved it. Um, and I still like it. I still like it a lot to this day. I think it's a really, really good album. Underappreciated. But yeah, I mean, from that moment on, it was Kanye and Jay Z, and then when it was announced that they were putting out an EP, I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle it. I mean that the anticipation for that EP, and then for it to later be changed to being an album. I mean, I can't like words can't explain how like what that moment was for me. And this was right after I graduated from high school. Um, Watch the Throne meant so much to me, and it still means a lot to me. I got my T-shirt that don't necessarily fit me no more, but um, with the Ricardo Tisci design, and that's another thing like moment for me. Kanye, him speaking about fashion as much as he did in his music, kind of because I'm very, very into fashion. So um kind of opened my eyes to fashion, to certain aspects of fashion. Um and he was always looked at as kind of the weirdo. But later on it would catch on. It would be, you could take the same shirt, the same design from Kanye, put it under a different name and it'll sell out. You know what I mean? And even under Kanye, it eventually would sell out. But it's just uh it seemed to be more appreciated under, with the same design, same ideas, same concepts with just a different name for whatever reason. And that still rings true, except for the shoes. I mean, the shoes are you know uh, undeniable. There's no way that you could, it's just as a a Kanye shoe releasing is still a Kanye shoe releasing. even post all the moments that we've had here recently, they still had the Yeezys to sell out and make millions and millions of dollars as they did not too long ago, earlier this year. Um, but I just I could go on and on about it, about how many moments I can think of in hip hop. Um, it's just Lil B. Even though I'm not looking at Lil B as a lyrical miracle genius or anything like that, but just what he was trying to bring, what he was attempting to bring to hip hop, I think the world needed, and I think that was also a moment because him and Soldier Boy were pretty good homies at that time, and just what they eventually brought to hip hop, to the genre of, I guess what they brought to music was the rap side of hip hop. It wasn't necessarily the boom bap or anything like that, but it's just uh it brought a refreshing take. It brought a different side of the coin, if you will, to what hip hop and rap meant. Where you would probably have it on your iPod or have it on your whatever you have as just hip hop. This was the moment where they put that slash in and became hip hop slash rap. Um, so that was a special moment. Going back to Wu Tang, I remember. Well, I mean, Into the 36 Chambers is another one of my favorite hip hop albums of all time. I remember just so much, man, so much. I can go back hearing Ether, hearing Takeover. I remember exactly where I was because obviously Blueprint came out on September 11th, 2001. It was when I was in third grade. I remember my aunt picking me up from school, picking me and my younger uncle up from school, and my cousin being in the passenger seat and saying, "You got the new Jay Z? I want to hear ROC. We running this rap shit." And I'm like, what song is that? And then they played it. I'm like, whoa. I remember that same aunt, I remember riding with her, listening to UGK. Let me see it, let me see it, let me see it, let me see it. I remember that. It's just so much, man. I mean, just having the CD players. I still got me. I went back and got me a CD player just for the nostalgia of it. Um, I went through so many tape players, so many MP3 players. I still got an iPod. I still got a digital audio player. I got two iPods actually. Um, it's just, and I still buy my music. It is that feeling. I like physical media, and I like going somewhere and picking something up and placing it in whatever device I'm listening to, and you know, sorry, give me just a second, please. Um, it's just so many moments, and I just remember like I like having like I used to go to FYE at the time. I don't even I think that store only exists online now. Um, Going through the CDs where you could scan the CD, you could listen to the previews. And that went to being iTunes where you could, like, if you wanted to buy an album, you listen to like a 30-second preview of the songs on the album. Um, I always did that with headphones on. I just, it's just so much about hip hop that I look back on fondly, and I look forward to moments that we will have in hip hop. I remember putting people on and people looking at me as who I as what my taste is in hip hop. Putting people on J. Cole and putting people on Kendrick Lamar and uh introducing them to Travis Scott and those kind of things, man. It's just um as far as music goes, nothing makes me happier, nothing um makes me feel more, nothing makes me nothing puts me in a better place than hip hop. And I am eternally grateful for this genre that was created in the Bronx 50 years ago this year. Um, and I'm sure that hip hop can probably be traced back further than that, but I guess this is the moment that they recognize it. I think that it's dope that we can have like a specific date that where they recognize such a thing. I'm so grateful for this genre. I mean it. If it weren't for hip hop, I don't know. I don't know that I would be um I don't know that I would have ever recorded anything as far as being on a platform and speaking about anything. I don't. I although I have many other interests. I love video games. I love fashion. I love uh, sports. I love cars and those kind of things. But just is something of some you can find something in hip hop that kind of relates to all of those things, man. And I just think that that's so powerful. And I mean this is a genre that I love. This is a topic that I love, and I just I'm glad that it exists. Um uh I'm okay about the place that it's in now. I do hope to see maybe some comebacks or something to to shake up the game a little bit. I hope to see that soon. Um, and all of like the legacy acts to me, I hope that they continue to do what they do. And yeah, I'm grateful. I love it, and it's something where of course, a noun is a person, place, thing, or idea, right? And the idea of hip hop, uh, to me, is something that I love, and I feel like it loves me back, if that's possible at all. You know what I mean? I just think that it's something that has given back to me uh in ways that I can't even think to speak about um without even knowing, and I think that's beautiful. And I look forward to seeing y'all next week with episode 12. We'll talk about some sports, talk about whatever's going on. I got a couple of pieces coming in as far as clothes that I may or may not talk about. Um got a couple game pickups that I can maybe talk about. But until then, I will see you all when I see you. I pray for your well being, and I love you all. Peace.